In this video, I want to have a look at some of the old breweries in North America, particularly. I have to narrow my search, otherwise it's just a never-ending search. Even this was bottomless. I could really go on and find things I hadn't seen after searching for quite some time. So I was inspired to make this video after watching Jon Levi's latest release entitled Intoxication of the Nation, Breweries, Salt Lake City and San Francisco. Definitely check out his stuff. Like I've said in the past, if you're following me, you probably know all about Jon. Jon does some good work. And in my opinion, I think he does good work because he, in one respect, he leaves it up in the air. He's not telling you anything for certain, but he's also really good at sort of pointing out what's laughable in the historical narrative. So we can have a look around at the breweries, the grand breweries, really, of some of these like ridiculous complexes, right? 1800s. Many of these very difficult to find photographs of. Most of what you're going to see in this is postcards. It's very strange, actually, how so many of these have just sort of disappeared. Not a lot of history on their, of course, when they were built, how they were built, when they came down. Very vague, I found. But you do see the features we are used to seeing. The arch windows, and this one a bit blurry, but you get the idea. You see a lot of them with the Antiquitech type tops, and of course the very long stacks. This one, Sen and Ackerman Brewery, Louisville, Kentucky. And if it doesn't have a name, I'll try and give you that. This one I think featured in Jon's video. This one is ridiculous. The Pabst Brewery. I could dig forever on this one. It pops up probably the most. Look at the size of the complex here. The types of buildings that you're dealing with. Just ridiculous. But it's not alone in these features, as you'll see. And if you're familiar with my channel, you know that I contend that much of this old world infrastructure existed and was repurposed, hijacked, robbed by the robber barons, whatever you want to call it. And I would say these breweries fall into that category, in my opinion. Much like the asylums of the time, hospitals, government buildings, post offices, all those types of things. Just a repurposing of the past. This one, Anheuser-Busch St. Louis. Another one of the monsters. Again, St. Louis. You get a sense for the intricacy of the construction here. I'm not even sure what the heck's going on up here. What are these supposed to be, lights or decoration? Got a 1891 date over here. But what a spectacular facility. This would be the inside of one of those buildings we were just looking at. In postcard form, of course. This is a Busch building in Tampa. Anheuser-Busch. But again, you get these massive factory type complexes, and many of these, I guess in places like the UK, although they have their breweries there as well, of course, but more well known as factories, things like that. This one in Belleville, Illinois. Billings, Montana. Now you see that similar feature at the top there, right? That we were looking at on the previous one. Bisbee, Arizona. I think it's this building here. Bloomingdale, New York. Kirchhoff. This is very, very obscure, difficult to find. Back in Montana. Again, a massive complex, but you get the corners with the domes. And of course the streetcar scene. so everything sort of repeats itself. And then you have to wonder, and they do say that at the time it was safer to drink beer than it was to drink water. That's sort of the slogan of the time, and I suppose it's a way of passing off the existence of all these breweries all over the continent. You'll also see a very sort of German-Dutch theme to a lot of the names as the breweries popped up all over the place. Fort Wayne, Indiana here. This is quite the structure. No photographs of most of these, like I said. But I mean, is this really what we're dealing with? Is this was such a lucrative business at the time that these breweries were able to take off all over the country? This one, Cincinnati, this is like a sort of a mix of the ones that once existed in Cincinnati. I suspect they're all gone now. We don't know for sure. But why would Cincinnati need all of these buildings for breweries? I mean, yeah, I get it. You know, people say the history of the time, it was a very hard-working populous, lot going on. Of course, we know that they were building these elaborate buildings all over the place, and they're building the railroads, and they were building the bridges and infrastructure. It was a lot going on, so they must have needed to wet their whistle after a hard work day. So they probably just whipped up the breweries to make sure that they could get some hydration, since the water was undrinkable at the time. And of course, as they did back then, you had to add a little flair no matter what the size, the shape of the building. You had to add that flair, and there you have those again on top. Interesting. Of course, I guess you would say, if you see this on all the old buildings at the time, it must have been easy for them to do. And that's, again, where I sort of scratch my head and say, really? Boulevard Brewing, New Jersey. And interesting too, all the different names. Of course, many I've never heard of. Maybe a lot have faded into history. Maybe not. Maybe some still. Well, we know some do still exist to this day. But this one, Duluth, Whitker Brewing, and then you see again the aging on the building. Like if this was in Liverpool or something like that in the UK, you would easily understand that this building's been standing for a couple hundred years. But when you try to translate that to the North American continent, it's, for some reason we have this mental blocker that says no, that can't be possible. So we don't believe our eyes. This one, A Toast to the Fair, and of course I wanted to throw this one in there. The Falstaff Museum of Brewing postcard, and we've got the Ferris wheel from the St. Louis World's Fair. This would be the back of that postcard. Yeah, they want you to enjoy some of their brewery or brew while you also enjoy the World's Fair. So interesting how it all ties together. Then you have Texas. This may, in other ways, other places may be classified as a prison. The prison's also, I think, going through that repurposing, having that castle look, but in this case we have a brewery. Frank Jones Brewing, Portsmouth. Again, a massive complex. Galveston. Oh, Galveston. This is a place I wish I could have visited in its heyday. I have to do a video on that. And of course, this stuff really, especially when you get locations like Montana here, Great Falls, Montana, it really flies in the face of what we understand to be this period of time. There's a horse and buggy give you an idea. But you look at the building and you have that castle effect, and you have the large blockwork down here, arched windows, and I have more of a picture from my upbringing of Montana as false front, mud streets, people on horses, ranchers, those types of things. This is Wyoming, same thing for Wyoming. I don't picture these types of buildings. Look at this. Really? Who was doing this back then? There it is, Fort Wayne Brewing. Come on now. I mean, if you look at this and you're scoffing anyone who is interested in a potential deception in our history, this is Wilmington, Delaware. I don't understand how you can look at that way and not be in wonder at the anomalies, are really the things that don't line up as they should. Like the construction of something like this in 1880. This established in 1854. This built in 1898. Okay. For production of beer. Jackson Beer, New Orleans. Lexington. Look at this, eh? Well, of course. That's obviously the offices of the owners, the fat cats, as we say, in their suits with their pocket watches and monocles, earning every penny. Lexington again. Liberty Brewing, eh? Springfield having the same idea up here, maybe just one owner for this smaller one, but he gets to stay up there in the dome. Here in Canada, Kingston, Ontario. Really? That's a brewery? I guess. And it doesn't seem to matter where you go. This one again having those things on the roof. Vents, I guess we're gonna call them. All over the place. Like this is like, you can imagine if we had what we have today as liquor stores, the variety from all over the place. This one going back to the Milwaukee Pabst. I like this one. Little dormers on the cone here. Very, very unique feature. Very interesting and sort of definitely tricky to build that. I can't really imagine. Not tricky for them, of course, at the time. They were knocking this stuff out like it was nothing. There it is there in color. Look at the age on this building here. 1880, of course. But again, if you were in somewhere in Eastern Europe, and I told you this was built in the 1600s, you'd say, yeah, of course, it's Eastern Europe. So, of course, Milwaukee, a hub for beer brewing, among a few other things. This is the Pabst building torn down in the 80s. I'm going to have to do a Gone Too Soon on this one. Absolutely ridiculous. This is the Philip Best and Company, 1880. This photo taken. Look at the blockwork here. And of course, you have the trains coming right up to these places. Of course, it's the only way you'd ship anything. This looks like some sort of elevator, 1880. Incredible. Narragansett, Cranston, Rhode Island. I mean, it goes on and on. Got a couple more here. Stick with me. It's funny too when you do this research. This is Oshkosh, Milwaukee. When you do this research and you start to go down the proverbial rabbit hole of whatever you're looking at, you get pulled in all sorts of different interesting directions as you find more visuals of something that interests you. 1878 we have here. This is Peter Delgers, New York. Look at the detail up here, eh? This is the Pfaff Brewery, Boston. 1872, this photo from. Fire in Boston. Another one of those narratives. Very difficult to find the fact that this even existed. I think I found this first, and then I found the picture you just saw second. Very old, sort of buried, hidden history. And then the whole Prohibition narrative is interesting as well, how it ties in with all this. And I don't know, I mean, I have my theories. I suspect is that part of a wiping away of a lot of this history? Was that the excuse to get rid of a lot of these breweries when Prohibition came to be? This in Spokane, Shade Brewery. Saginaw, the Shem Brewery. Milwaukee, Schlitz. You see it there. And that's, of course, where the owner likes to go. And I can imagine, of course, a blimp docking here, get out, walk down here, as you do in the old world. We have a distillery from Louisville here. I threw this one in there. Didn't really look at many other distilleries for this one, but this one popped up and reminded me of the Kirkbride asylum type layouts you see. Feels like almost like a bird with its wings spread out, maybe a bat even. In this case, looking very square, these buildings, but same shape. Interesting positioning of the stack here too, very symmetrical. This is the Seagram's distillery, Louisville. And it makes me wonder, purpose for the stacks. A lot of these places steam powered, using steam to do all the brewing work, all the power required. Sacramento. This in Toronto, a distillery again in Toronto. I found a few from Canada. But the list is almost never ending. You can honestly go on and you end up finding more and more, and it's sort of, it's a bit baffling for sure. How can these things keep popping up? Alright, we've come full circle. Yeah, I wanted to bring you some of these, the visuals on these. Dug around pretty hard for them. And I do think there's more to the story with the breweries. Of course, the whole idea of intoxication and blurring our ability to think, ability to remember. And of course, we know that alcohol does that at an immediate level. Is this also something we can look at as something that's going on in the collective, has been introduced or pushed or enhanced or altered to keep us from seeing the truth or what is truer than what we have been told? Is there deception here? I definitely propose there is. Anyway, thank you for joining me on this as I ramble through this video. If you like these videos, of course, please like, share, subscribe.